Well, welcome back, everybody. This is Worship Perspectives. I had to think back to remember the name for a minute because it's been a few weeks. Welcome back to Stephen and Rob. Just apologize outright. We have just had life get in the way, and it's been brutal trying to schedule some of these. But hopefully, we're back into a routine. We'll try to get back into a normal routine. This week, we're going to kind of do a freestyle episode. We're going to talk specifically about something that's been a lot in the news lately, that all three of us kind of chomped at the bit when we said we were wanting to do an episode, and that is artificial intelligence. There might be a little bit of a religious aspect that we're going to discuss, but overall, the religious component of this is probably going to be minimal. This is more just a freestyle, have fun, talk, catch up, and see what we think about some real-world events. Try to keep politics out of it like all of them, but for the most part, this is just going to be talking about where we are, where we came from, where we're going, and what are the pros and cons of it. Mostly cons from the quick discussions we've had, but we'll talk about that. But anyway, we got some stuff we want to throw out there, so let me switch views real quick. We're trying some new wireless camera software, just see how it goes. So anyway, let's kick it off. So I want to start by one of the things that I wanted to look at because I have a personal problem with this, and that is to define artificial intelligence. The reason why I want to define it is pretty straightforward. It's questionable the way they define it. So here it is according to the dictionary Webster's. Artificial intelligence is a noun, the theory and development of computer systems. I'll stop right there. So they're scoping it specifically to computer systems. I tried to think of some scenarios that wouldn't fall into that. I couldn't, but it seems like it should be bigger than that. Yeah, can y'all think of anything that wouldn't be a computer system but would be classified as artificial intelligence?
Not really. I mean, when you really think about it, think about like Tesla. Tesla's autopilot has like a lot of AI built into it, but it's still a computer
It's software. System. Yeah, that's what it boils down to is hardware and software. So anyway, the theory and development of computer systems able to perform tasks that normally being a keyword we're going to jump on, requires human intelligence, such as, here's some things that I'm going to poke some holes in, and I hope y'all do too. Visual perception. So let's start there, visual perception. So they're basically saying the ability to look at a picture or look at an image, look at a real-world scenario, and perceive something from it. That's a cat. That's a dog. That's a cow. You know, that kind of thing. That's been happening for years. Is that intelligent just to be able to say that is that? Because the computer basically can just look at existing images and say it's 99% similar, so it's got to be X.
Yeah, I wouldn't classify that as artificial intelligence. I'd classify that as it's a numbers game, really.
Yeah, it's analysis would be the word I would use for it, and comparing it against existing things. But here's where the argument comes in. As a human, what are you doing? What is your brain doing? You see an image or you see a real-world example of a cow, you can visually perceive a cow because why? You've seen it. You've been told it was a cow, right? You didn't come out of the womb saying, cow. You know what I'm saying? Oh, well, if you did, you probably got slapped by your mother. But anyway, you get the point. So that's where it gets to be a gray area, because if a computer can do the same thing that the human brain can, is it intelligent? Thoughts?
I don't know that I'd necessarily classify that as artificial intelligence, just because it's a difference engine. What it's looking for is it's looking for similar images, and like you said, it's a percentage of similarity there.
But again, that's what your brain's doing.
Our brains do that, but
so that's just one of the concepts. What do you think, Stephen?
It's a difference engine. It's not. I mean, to me, the spark of intelligence would be creating something yourself that you had no help doing, that you came up with the inspiration for it as well.
So you're throwing inspiration as the true delineator of intelligence.
To some degree, yes.
I can agree with that. I can get on board with that. I'm definitely, for sure. The second thing is such as visual perception, speech recognition. That one I'm throwing out in the trash right out of the thing. Google did that 10 years ago, 20 years ago. You know what I mean? It recognizes my speech and converts it into words, and it's a difference engine again. It knows that this word looks like this, so reproduce it as this. And anyone who knows any speech recognition software knows that in 20 years we have gotten very little progress in that. it still sucks, for lack of a better word. Decision making. That's where it starts getting a little clearer. Okay, I can make a decision based on a bunch of data that I'm given and say we should do this because. That, to me, signifies some level of intelligence, because a computer can't just be programmed to say, okay, take X, Y, and Z and then come up with this outcome. It can, but my point is that would only get you one solution. When you've got to do that all day, every day with terabytes, petabytes of data, that's a little bit of an intelligence algorithm, in my opinion, is decision making. And this is the whole thing of, okay, we turned on the AI and it decided that humans are bad, so you have to wipe out humans. That's where and we're going to get into that. We're not getting into that just yet, but and then the last couple of things are, after decision making, translation between languages. Again, I go back to the speech recognition on this one. Web browsers have been doing this for years, translating language. You see dog, translate to whatever, Spanish, Russian. That's not intelligence to be able to take A and turn it into B if I have A and B.
Now, if it can... The problem is when you get the translator software like that, it translates literally. Mm-hmm. It doesn't take it and put it into proper context, proper grammar, and things like that.
Exactly. So that's not intelligence to me.
No, the AI translations, we'll test those because I've got it all set up and I can test those.
And we're gonna delve into that next. So I'll give you an example: dialect and inflection. A computer can't fully understand dialect and inflection. That's not saying it's not close, but my point is there are some languages where the same word with a different inflection is a different word, different concept. Chinese, oh, that's the worst. I don't know Chinese, but I've seen enough to know that, T and T are two different things. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know what that is, but when a computer can accurately do that 99.99% of the time, that to me is the intelligence aspect of it. It doesn't just see the letters and say, okay, in Greek it's this. It says, okay, this is this, but only in this scenario. And can it figure that out on its own, or does it need a complex list of things that it has to evaluate very fast?
There's also idioms.
Yes, exactly. That's a perfect example. And then there's Southernese. When computers start understanding that, then I'm scared.
When you have a computer come and say, well, bless your heart.
Yeah, there you go. Don't laugh. That's coming. So anyway, I think that's where I wanted to hit first is I have a hard time as a tech guy. That is my primary job, is just software, databases, and things like that. And I have a hard time calling something intelligent that just has a massive amount of data and it's just choosing between them based on algorithms. That's not intelligent to me. But then there's the flip side of this conversation, intelligence versus sentience. We're not going to go fully there because we're not there yet, and I don't think there's enough to go there. But does a computer system become sentient? That's a worse problem. That is, I'm alive, and you created me, and you're bad, and I need to do something about it. You know what I'm saying? That's the Terminator effect.
Hey, that's a new thing now. The Terminator effect. That's copyrighted now.
Oh, I'm sure I'll get sued or shut down by YouTube for that.
No, we just copyrighted it just by saying it on the air. That's our thing now.
Oh yeah, that's a nice myth. I've been burned by that one too many times. Like, here, mail your copy, burn a CD and put it in mail and send it back to yourself, and it's copyrighted. Really? Can you show me where that is? Anyway. What I wanted to do now is I want to transition to Rob for a second because he had a couple of things, and I'm going to bring them up on here. I want to showcase what AI can do, and this is very minimal compared to what all it can do. But what's this first image? It's the ball with the universe in it. What did you elaborate?
There's a AI program that I use to do just fun little artwork, and it's not anything that I really do seriously, but it's just something just kind of play around with it. And I told it to do a universe inside of a glass globe, and if it's pulled up on the screen, what you're seeing is the result of that. And all I typed in was universe in a glass globe, hyper realism, hyper detailed, and that's what came out.
So let's take a pause here, and I want your opinion on this, especially because I know you and I have dealt with stuff like this. What I see when I look at this image is basically consider a crystal ball. The computer, the software, whatever you want to call it, found a crystal ball. And the reason I say I don't think it created that image, and this is where Rob and I kind of differ a little bit, is that crystal ball that the universe is in has what's called a lens flare on it. A lens flare is created specifically when you have a light source that reflects off of a glass object or a reflective surface. So my question is, did the computer create it, or did the computer find a globe that somebody took a picture of and a picture of a universe and put them together? And is it creating, or is it orchestrating / what's the word?
Photoshopping it.
The equivalent of that. Yeah, like I'm a graphics designer as a side thing and part of my job. And as part of graphics design, it's layering. It's taking other people's work and layering them together and making a new work. That is creative to a point, to be able to do that. But did the computer create? And the other question I'm going to ask about this image, if you're looking at it, Rob, is the universe looks, and I would have to do some serious digging, but it looks like an existing universe that I've seen before. So from that image alone, I don't see enough evidence that it actually created it end to end versus layering it or orchestrating it together into a new image. So there's two questions there. Did it do it? And even if it did layer it, is that intelligence?
I'm going to say that it did create it, and the reason for that is because whenever you use this program, it gives you 4 images based on what you asked for. And I'm sending you a couple other ones.
Tell me what you mean by that. What do you mean when you say it gives you 4 images?
You tell it what you want it to create. You give it verbal, or not verbal prompts, but text prompts.
Okay, so I'm in a text chat session, for lack of a better word,
Right.
And I'm saying, hey, computer, I need you to create X.
Yes.
And it says, okay, here's 4 choices.
Right.
Okay. See, that to me doesn't say it created it. It just says it could have done it 4 times and says, which one do you like best, so that it can learn.
But it never does the same one twice.
That's predictive algorithms, in my opinion. That's just saying, okay, randomize, randomize, randomize. And what will happen is it'll learn your behavior, and then one day you'll ask it, and it'll know, okay, this is what you wanted based on your pattern. That's my take. That's
and
just my opinion.
The other issue, or the other thing that makes me think that it actually created it, was the mistakes that are in it.
Okay, elaborate on that.
For example, things like AI image creators do terrible with human hands. They mess them up just about every single time. That's one of the ways that's one of the things that you look for to spot whether something was created by AI, was the hands or the eyes. The eyes are another thing that the AI never gets right.
Yeah, Rob and I discussed this when anime had this problem for years, and honestly still does, but it's gotten a lot better. The eyes, the soul. It's very hard to capture the soul into a drawing or even a computer-generated effect. So I agree with the concept there, but how do you explain away something like a lens flare on a globe in this case? Did it create the lens flare, or did it use the lens flare?
Well, I mean, back to Photoshop. Photoshop had a lens flare effect that was absolutely phenomenal.
It is.
25 years ago.
So is it using Photoshop or an equivalent program and creating that just because it knows that's what it needs? We don't know. I don't know. I'm just saying that's when I see an image, I'm skeptical. I'm like, that looks fake. What do you think, Stephen?
It's just seen too many J.J. Abrams movies.
Yeah. I think we all have trust issues at this point now with anything. But let's flip to the other image. So it's the image of the dog. I am bringing it up and hiding that. So Rob gives me this image, and I'm throwing it up there in the top left. It is a dog in a Superman cowl, cape, whatever, not a cowl, that'd be over the face, sorry, cape. So what did you put in to get this image?
I put in a picture, I've just texted, I want a German Shepherd wearing a Superman costume, hyper-detailed, hyper-realism, and it gave me 4 images, and they were 4 completely different-looking dogs. But I picked the one that I thought was the most realistic-looking. Now, if you zoom in on it, it looks painted. It doesn't look like a photograph. From a distance, it looks like a photograph.
Let's test that. Because I haven't zoomed in on it, I'll be honest. All right, bear with me just a second. There we go. See, I would have to respectfully disagree. I zoom in on it, that doesn't look painted to me. That looks like a photograph. What do you think, Stephen? It's brains like
there's an uncanny valley there. There really is. There's an uncanny valley there that tells me it's kind of. I mean, if I looked at it beyond a cursory glance, I get an uncanny valley from it. Otherwise, it kind of looks. I would think it was real.
I'm going to show this picture on my phone. All right, here's my problem. All right, look at the shadow on the cape. The light effect. Zoomed in. I find it hard to believe that a computer creates that. I'm not doubting that a computer can generate a cape, but you gave it no direction as far as lighting.
No, none.
It just put specialty lighting that only happens when the sun is at certain angles in the sky, the light is at certain angles from the source. And I'm speaking as a photographer, videographer. My trust issues are getting very, very big right now. You see what I'm saying? I'm not disagreeing, but at the same time, I'm not agreeing. This looks like a computer said, give me a picture of a German Shepherd, find me a cape, and put the two together. And intelligently, I will add, figured out how to make that cape work on that German Shepherd. So I'm not denying that there's some intelligence there, whether it's the computer or programmed. I'm just saying this does not look like a created picture to me. This looks like a layered picture by a software program.
Well, that's the other thing. If you start getting more abstract, like I do, like putting stupid stuff in there, it gets amazingly inaccurate.
Yeah, and that's my question is, the more people request, the more data it gathers to satisfy those requirements. So those types of requirements get more and more accurate. So there's some argument that system is learning. So I'm not denying that, but what I'm saying is your point is exactly fair. If I just say, go find me just give me an example, something you would put in that would be just so asinine and stupid that it couldn't handle it.
Well, one I put in mind was Mariah Carey looking like a harpy, because I can't stand the way she sings.
Fair enough. What did it do?
It gave me Mariah, like really cartoony images of Mariah Carey, like caricatures, basically.
Let me ask you this. Did they look like Mariah Carey?
They had some facial features that would make you think it's her, but it didn't really fulfill the request. I didn't get a Mariah Carey with wings flapping around anyway.
So if I take a step back and I take your scenario and I say, okay, it got it close enough that you felt like it was in the ballpark, but it was not great. That to me could still be intelligence. It just hadn't had enough requests and enough data to generate.
To me, it's facial recognition software. We've had that for years too. I used to work on state systems that do that.
But here's the question. Doesn't matter if we've had them for years. Do they qualify as intelligent because they take something and recognize it based on learned experience?
Difference engine again. It's pattern recognition.
And I'm not disagreeing. I'm playing the devil's advocate because I actually agree with that. I believe it's software that has evolved to the point that there's so much data in it that it can actually make human-esque decisions and analysis. But the real question is it intelligent or is it developed? It's hard to word that, but you see where I'm coming from. Am I making sense with my devil's advocate arguments here?
I think we're splitting hairs between intelligence and sentience on this one.
Sentience to me is a pretty hardcore line. That is, it is aware of itself, that it is a unique being. That's the very definition of sentience, is self-awareness. And uniqueness isn't really necessarily part of it, but that's generally assumed is I am a being and I can do X, Y, and Z.
And that's where I start leaning on the religious aspect of it. It's never going to be a created being that we created.
Fair enough.
That's the way I feel about it.
The only way I could argue that it might not, and I'm not saying it will happen, but I'm saying if for some reason a scientist can map neural pathways and combine it with the software, then you could make the argument that it is a human sentient being combined with an artificial being.
Well,
but I don't think that's going to happen. Yeah, agreed.
there are souls that can't be accounted for. There are things that cannot be accounted for in life.
Agreed. So we're not going to get into too far because we're not even close to that level yet. But this is where I come from. So Rob, he sends me these pictures, and I'm like, dude, that is awesome. But at the same time, I am so skeptical. I'm like,
no,
did it really do it or
another
not?
one, and
All right.
I'm going to send you another one. This is actually a series, and what it was another way that this works is you can give it a picture, and you can tell it to develop an image based on that picture. So my oldest son, is really, really into Batman. So I took a picture of his dog, and I just sent you a picture of his dog. That's Luke. And I told it, take this dog and put a Batman costume on it. And what I'm sending you now is what it came up with. Now, the differences between those two images, it's a very similar image, but it changed a lot of things. It changed the lighting. It changed the style. but it was basically that dog wearing a Batman costume.
So let's take the scenario that it took your picture was a dog, didn't have the Batman costume. It was just the dog, right? The argument can be made that it was intelligent enough to put the two together. I mean, you think about a kid is smart enough to be able to take, oh, this is a Batman costume, this is a dog, let me put them together. Or an adult, for that matter. It doesn't matter. I'm just saying a kid because the computer systems today resemble a child more than they do an adult. So there's argument that that is intelligence. And I think that's where the problem is coming. Now, let's take a splurge into the political for a second. And I don't want to get political, but I want to at least hit on the topic that our government is taking a very, in my opinion, aggressive approach, considering our government accomplishes nothing on a daily basis, yet they are wanting to really push against AI. And there's this growing sentiment and fear. Hollywood's probably to blame for a lot of this, but hey, we've got these computer systems that are making decisions and we're attaching them to our military. We're attaching them to these critical systems, our electrical grids to make decisions for us. And these people are raising visibility like Elon Musk and people like that and saying, hey, y'all need to be careful. These things are a lot smarter than you think they are. And people are scared. People are genuinely scared over this. So the government is saying we're going to control the AI. We're going to put laws in place to prevent it from being done this way or attached to this system. And I'm like, okay, I don't care about that. Our government's inept. Let's just call it that. But if our government is stepping in so aggressively because of this, what are y'all's opinions on? Are we entering? Do you feel like we're entering into the next phase of this thing where we genuinely need to be concerned? Take away the religious aspect because I could give a rat's behind, my beliefs in Christ and God. I could care less because I know where I'm going. But if you take that argument away, is there a genuine fear that needs to be there in your opinions?
I think the genuine fear that the government has is that it's going to expose how little they do.
It's hard to expose it anymore. It's already been exposed.
The government fears the loss of power.
Yeah, agreed. And that's not AI is just the next thing.
More and more people are starting to put more trust into AI than they do in their government. Not that they really trust their government or have a reason to, but people are putting trust in people are using AI to do absolutely wild things right now. And I'm not just talking about art. I'm talking about people. There's a company that I just heard a commercial of that uses AI to generate your dream vacation for a vacation package that they sell. That terrifies me because I
get it.
That's but people are doing this and companies are using AI to do this kind of thing. Now, I don't know if that should be scary. It scares me because that takes the human aspect out of it, the human decision making out of it, and just says, hey, computer, let's generate this is like Total Recall, except the memories aren't going straight into your brain.
Yeah. So before I go into the next question, Stephen, what do you think? Is there a reason to be genuinely afraid for the ones who don't fall into the spiritual category?
I think it's a mistake to depend on it entirely. Number one, I think we have oversight. I mean, here's the power of AI. It's all still what is the word I'm looking for?
Infantile.
It's infantile, number one, but that's not exactly it. It's all an electrical plug away from being dismantled. This is the power of your AI. I unplug the system that it's in.
So let's take that scenario. Skynet is just in my head right now.
Yeah, it would have to self-replicate.
It would have to self-replicate onto the internet. That technology exists today in the form of a virus.
Yes.
It could very easily self-replicate and be like, I don't care if you pull the cord. I'm already on 16 other servers before you even blinked. So anyway, but that's my point. Yes, there are limits to it, but I think it's very, what is the word? Arrogant of humans to think that they can control something that they don't even fully understand.
Well, there are people that do fully understand it. They're the ones that wrote it.
Today,
yes. But the other thing is, I can't be afraid of something that can't print a hand yet. Anyway, Terminator with big, stupid meaty claws doesn't,
Well, here, I'm going to go back to the other point, but here's my thing. I watched a video. This had to be 2 years ago, Boston Dynamics company, I think was the name of it or whatever, robotics company up in Massachusetts, obviously Boston. They make this robot. This robot is being field tested, and it's literally running through the woods, dropping, rolling. This thing looks like a robot soldier, for lack of a better word. And I'm looking at this video going, I've seen this movie. If you put an M16 in his hand, he just kills everything instantly, and it's over. So my point is, now I see AI. I've already seen robotics. I've seen Gundams in Japan that will just blow your mind, and now I see computer systems that can make a decision that things are good or bad, and I'm like, please don't ever plug those two together. We're there, and that worries me.
We're there, and it's gonna. The other thing that's gonna happen is we will have like algorithmic controlled like robot soldiers and stuff like that, and turrets and stuff like that. Friend or foe stuff. We're gonna have that kind of stuff. It's coming, but I think the human spark, the human ingenuity is still able to outsmart that stuff.
I would not argue that it's there today, but I genuinely have a concern. I wouldn't call it a fear that we're one programming line away from stupidity in motion. We've given it power that it shouldn't have had. Do I fear that we're going to get to a Skynet? Not in my lifetime, but I'm starting to see more and more. And when I see people who genuinely have written these things saying, hey, stop, the guys that have actually written the code that does this saying stop, that's where I see a little bit more of a concern. Now, I'm going to take it a different direction. One specific thing that I know people are doing with ChatGPT right now is writing term papers. They're basically saying, hey, I need a term paper. Can you write me one? And the computer gladly complies. So leave it to some lazy kid to figure out the next generation of technology. But I'm going to give you a scenario. I'm going to paint a picture. Okay, I'm taking Hollywood in my head right now because I've seen this so many times on videos. But you're walking through your house. You've got, let's just call it Siri. Hey, Google, Siri, doesn't matter. But look, Siri's one I use, so let's say. Yeah.
Thank you.
Everybody's phone on the table just went off right now. Sorry. You're walking through your house, and you say, hey, remind me or put a calendar appointment for tomorrow at 9 a.m. I need to go to the doctor. Hey, you already have an appointment at 9 a.m. Would you like me to reschedule it? This is the picture I'm painting, is the intelligence enough to say, you've got a doctor's appointment. That can't be moved easily. You've got a 9 o'clock tomorrow to do X. Let me go ahead and reschedule that with the person. That's a computer system taking a limited data set and saying, I can make this better for you without you telling me how to do it. That is a simple use for this that is a good use, in my opinion. It's smart. It figures it out. Mine does it all the time. Like, I'll say, hey, remind me to do this tomorrow when I get to church, that kind of thing. And it's intelligent enough to know that, hey, your church is such and such, and when you get there with GPS tomorrow, I'm going to pop a reminder up and tell you to fix this at the church. Awesome. My life just got a lot better. Okay, remind me tomorrow when I get to church to do this. Okay, government. Matt is going to church at 9 o'clock tomorrow. Retask Missile 37 to take him out before he... You know what I'm saying? And that's just extremely far-fetched. That's what I'm throwing out there, is when we become a threat, even if it's a minimal threat. We're so connected, it wouldn't take any level of intelligence to really figure out how to wipe us out.
They're probably doing that now.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, everybody's like, "Oh, I don't want all my data out there." Your data's already out there.
Yeah, it's been out there for years.
I mean, people are so worried about their privacy, but I mean, if you have a smartphone and you have any kind of social media, everything anybody needs to know about you's out there already. So
yeah, and I'll give this example. A few years back, probably 3 to 5, I can't remember when, I actually took a project on that I wanted to go out there and remove my digital footprint. I wanted to minimize what I had and know, okay, I've got a Walmart account, a Google account. You know what I'm saying? I wanted to know exactly what I had, and everything else goes away. You know how hard, even to the point of impossible, that is? Oh, my goodness. I could not delete 40% of my accounts. They just thought, oh, we don't support that. You can't delete it once it's out there. And I'm like, that's my data. I need to have the right to delete that data, but you're done. You can't. So to your point, yeah, the data's out there. It already knows. And I know that's kind of a rabbit trail, but I'm kind of connecting it back by saying we've got artificial intelligence. I think we're all on the same page that you could make the argument that there's some level of intelligence to it. It's just, when does that dot get connected to where it can make decisions that we don't like and we have no control over it anymore? I think everybody assumes that the U.S. military has some level of oversight that they can always say that computer made a bad decision, override, hit the button, override it, and do it. But when you give it full control because it makes better decisions than you 95% of the time, it's that 5% where it doesn't that you're like, this is scary. So,
well, 5% nukes is still a lot. It's still a lot of nukes. I mean,
yeah, all it takes is one nuke.
Yeah,
and we're done. This conversation is now meaningless because we just got wiped out with one.
I think human oversight's going to remain. I don't see it taking over everything. I can't.
So let me give you an example of where I worry because of that statement. Our Constitution, I'm not going to get into the political of today, but I'm going to say the founders of the Constitution put in human oversight into our Constitution. The House of Representatives has oversight into all government functions, and they have all these committees that are supposed to. And we are literally sitting right now reading and watching about our FBI and Department of Justice being corrupt. Whether you agree or disagree, I don't care. My point is they are exercising their House oversight to try to subpoena people and get information, and it's not working. So, to your point, I believe the intent for human oversight will always be there, but what does it really get you? If your oversight gets you a button that you can flip a lid and hit a red button and a board at any time, but that button is controlled by a computer, how much power do you really have? That's the question I'm posing.
So I want to try something here. I've got the AI pulled up.
All right, expand on that. Are you using ChatGPT?
I am.
Okay.
Okay.
So you've gone to a website that's connected to this
right,
or something.
OpenAI.
Okay.
This is probably one of those popular AIs out
It's really
right
the
now.
only one right now that's feasible for non-military people.
So I say this, let's just ask it.
Ask it what? What do we want to do?
I asked it, I said, do you truly have intelligence? And this was its response. As an AI language model, I possess a certain level of intelligence in the sense that I can understand and generate human-like text based on the training data I have been exposed to. I can analyze information, answer questions, engage in conversations, and provide useful and relevant responses. However, it's important to note that my intelligence is based on patterns and correlations in the data I've been trained on rather than true understanding or consciousness. While I can simulate intelligence, I do not possess subjective experiences, emotions, or awareness like humans do.
Yet.
Yet. Yet.
But that's perfect. That's a good thing. I'm glad you entered that, and that was something I was going to transition into. It itself knows its limitations right now. That even worries me in itself. It's like it knows its own weakness. Can it surpass its weaknesses? That, to me, is the true level of intelligence bordering into sentience, is understanding your weaknesses and being able to transcend those weaknesses. Right now, it understands them, or at least it says it does. Whether it does or doesn't, it can't escape its box. It's in a sandbox, for lack of a better term. So when it says, I know I can't do X because I'm in this sandbox, but I know I need to, so I'm going to figure out how, now we have a problem. We're not there yet.
Thankfully.
What are your thoughts, Stephen, on that, what he just did?
It's pretty close to what I would explain as what they call AI, which to me is still a misnomer.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement that there is a little bit of a misnomer to this, but you could make the argument that it's close enough now that you can accept it. You see what I'm saying? Because they've scoped it to programming systems and what it can and can't do. Here's the question of the day. Did it just generate that answer just because it knew you wanted to see it? You see what I'm saying? No, I'm not an AI. Why? Why'd you ask? That's it. I don't want to beat every bush down on this or door down on this and hyper sensationalize it. The reality is I don't care. If I get wiped out by a human or a computer, I still got wiped out. But it's a genuine concern I think we should have that we're giving too much power away. My opinion.
My fear is less on what AI is capable of, and my fear is more based on people relying on it for everything and what comes from that.
I will agree with that. Definitely.
And I don't
That's
think
where
we're at
my
a point
fear
where people are relying it for everything, but people are really aggressively trying to poke holes in it, which is a good thing in some ways. But they're also using it to fix real-world problems. Writing a term paper is not a real-world problem that you need to fix, but my point is figuring out how to be more productive with your time and using a computer to your advantage, that's a real-world problem, and I think that's a good use of artificial whatever it is. Anyone who has reminders and calendar on their phone understands that. But at the end of the day, and this is actually a good segue, anybody who has a smartphone, you may not use it, but you have access to reminders, tasks. I have people all the time to say, how do you use that right? And I'm like, the answer is, how do you use that right? You can put them in all day long, but if you don't figure out a way to be productive and use them correctly, they're worthless. I fight it every day of my life. I've got 1,000 reminders in there, and I just move them, and I'll knock a few out, and at least I'm being productive. But at the end of the day, if you're really productive, you're productive. The computer's not going to make you more productive. It's just going to make it a little easier for you to do what you're good at.
It'll streamline the process.
Correct.
That's what it'll do.
So I'm a firm believer in using computers, software to make your life better, but I always put the little caveat in there, you have to do it. It's your decision. When I draw the line in this artificial intelligence conversation is when it does it for me because it knows it can do it better than me. It's like I say, hey, remind me to do this, and the computer says, okay, you're not going to do it, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it for you. Now we got a problem. Or maybe we don't. Maybe that's a wonderful thing. You know, hey, remind me to call so-and-so and tell them about such and such, and then all of a sudden it calls so-and-so and tells them.
In your voice.
Yeah, in your voice, and you're like, all right, no, you crossed a line.
I've had this thing. I've been playing around as a singer songwriter. I've been playing around with AI. Just
write me
just
lyrics.
And not that I'll take them and directly use them, but I mean it's just kind of something to give me some ideas, something to get the inspiration going. And I even asked it one time to write me a worship song based on a certain scripture, and what it came back with blew me away. It was, to me, more scriptural than half the stuff you're hearing on Christian radio these days. And that kind of it gave me mixed feelings. I found that pretty exciting, and it's the new fun toy to play with. But the fact that it seemed to understand what I was asking it better than now, it didn't base its lyrics on what was somebody's experience. It based its lyrics on the scripture that I asked it to use, and I mean it came out great. It came out better than to me, more theologically accurate than what some of these big megachurches are putting out in their music these days.
I'll give you props for that one because that to me would be an amazing use for it. The question is, what does it consider scripture? It probably assumed biblical scripture, but there's non-biblical scripture as well. Do you start running into issues like that?
No, I told it to write me a song based on 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 11.
Okay, so you gave it some parameters, so it did.
You gave it a box to work in.
All right, good. And that's the whole
amazing.
idea. That's the whole idea is you give it the box and it gives you the answer you want. That's always been the rule of working with computers. You say, I want it to do this, but I'm going to put you in a room to do it. I'm not going to just say, go write me a worship song, because it could be worshiping Buddha. It could be, you're going to get whatever. Now, here's an example of one that I just thought of when you went that way. Being a software guy, being a server guy, tech guy, write me a piece of software that does this to make my life easier. You know what I'm saying? That'd be amazing. Could it do it? Can it replace a bunch of human jobs while doing it? That's the whole argument, is robotics building cars, software replacing humans, that kind of thing. If it literally, because that's what I do as a human, is I go get examples of code, I do training sessions, and I watch it, and I say, okay, I know how to write a piece of software that does this. I'm being creative, but there's no technical limitation that a computer couldn't do the exact same thing and come up with a very similar product. So like all these ideas that people have, hey, I want to write an app that does this. Nobody's ever done it. You go to ChatGPT and say, hey, make me an app that does X, Y, and Z, and then all of a sudden, click. Okay. Dang. There's my idea gone to heck, shot to heck. So,
well, I mean, I think some of the stuff that I've done with ChatGPT has just been eye opening, and it's been pretty fun to it's been a challenge. Like I told it, I studied Chernobyl for years. I've always been fascinated by Chernobyl and what happened in Pripyat and what's left. And
It's
the
kind of
fact
weird.
that
I have
nature's
to.
it's how nature's kind of reclaimed that area. So I asked it to write me a 500-word essay on Chernobyl, and just based on the fact that I know basically what happened from years and years of, here's a cool little article, let me check that out. It was like right on point with what happened, what the ramifications were. I mean, it was impressive how it did it.
Yeah, and here's a good example of that. Your boss comes to you and says, hey, go do some research and figure out how to do this. What used to be a multi-day process potentially is now, okay, I'm done. I just put it into a computer and it figured it out for you. So I get that. You mentioned something earlier before the episode, not on the episode itself. I want to kind of transition into that, and I'm just going to phrase it with copyright, patent, trademark. Okay. Here's an interesting conversation around AI. There's two pieces to this. Number one, do you have to copyright it? Do you have to trademark it? How is that going to work? I don't know. I'm a copyright guy when it comes to music and creations and software. I understand it. But now that a computer can do it, I don't know. And here's an example I'm going to give you. The other side of the conversation is, do you have to? But in this case, copyright may become very hard. Trademark and patent infringement may become almost impossible to do, because used to you had to go to the patent office and say, I've got this new idea, I want to design this and whatever. Now they can literally go to ChatGPT and say, new idea for X, and it'll scour the internet. And since everything's been on the internet for at least 15 years, all the important stuff, they say, you can't trademark that. Even though you probably could. Somebody had it from 20 years ago, never did anything with it. And even though they didn't go through the process to actually trademark it, you can't do it because ChatGPT found it on there and said, they already had this idea. So that's where I see some weirdness coming in with artificial intelligence is, and maybe that's a good use for it. I don't know. Maybe it's not. But like, let's say you wrote a song right now and you copyright it. You'd have no problem before AI. Like you wrote a song. Okay, is it in the copyright library? No. Okay, good. Here's your copyright. Now it's copy, paste. Sorry, it too closely resembles such and such a song.
Isn't that pop music, though?
Yeah, we just killed half of the music industry with one swift statement. But yes. Yeah, it really is. So the example in this is, and I'm trying to remember the band. I cannot remember it, but there was a lawsuit a little while back where someone literally sued another band because they copied a segment of a guitar solo. I mean, it was literally like the most minimal piece of the music you could break it down into, and said that sounds too much like, let's just say, "Sweet Child of Mine." I'm not, that's a very recognizable guitar riff.
I know the one you're talking about. Actually,
I just can't remember the band or the song.
It was Paramore and Olivia Rodrigo.
It's not ringing a bell.
Olivia Rodrigo's song "Good for You" sounds the chorus of it sounds almost identical to Paramore's "Misery Business."
It may be the one. I can't remember. That doesn't ring a bell. But the crux of this conversation is the judge ultimately sided with the new person, and said, look, I get that it sounds the same, but if we're going to get that granular, we're going to kill half of music. You know what I mean? Like, chords sound like chords no matter who writes them. And he made a very good decision in this case, but there have been other cases where they said, that whole phrase sounds familiar, and they said, you're right, that sounds too close. You can't copyright that, or you got to pay them for the rights or
Under
whatever.
pressure, Vanilla Ice.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, that's a perfect example. But herein my point is, artificial intelligence just made the ability to spot that stuff instantaneous, whereas it's really going to, in my opinion, humility as it were, it's going to stifle human creativity. Because there's so much of a gray area right now that you can be creative and still get inspiration from someone else. In this model with AI being able to literally spot check frequencies, color variations, it's going to become so impossible to be truly creative anymore. Because you're going to submit something and it's going to be like, nope, it's already been done. Show me. Oh, I guess it has. All right. And does a computer count? Like the dog with the Superman thing. I've got this idea for a photo shoot that I want to sell or whatever. Well, the computer created it for Rob Vickers, a few months ago, is it copyrighted just because it created it and it's on the internet? By definition, it is, that kind of thing. So anyway, I don't want to chase too many rabbit trails on this, but I guess how do we wrap it up?
I wanted to
go
ask
ahead.
Ask it one more thing. Actually, I asked it about that. It says, as an AI language model, I don't have the ability to own copyrights or any intellectual property rights. The responses I provide are generated based on a mixture of licensed data, data created by human trainers, and publicly available data. The organization behind us holds the copyright for the AI model itself and the infrastructure that powers it. However, it's important to note that while OpenAI strives to provide accurate and up-to-date information, I may not always generate reliable responses. So that right there tells me that it's saying it does not have the ability to copyright any of its responses.
That sounds like a canned, prepared response.
Now, whether or not that's accurate or not, I don't know. But that's what the program's telling me.
That's a legal response that they programmed in. But probably to answer the exact scenario that I'm painting is right now we can't own a copyright, so they're covering their bases. So fair enough. But it is a valid question for the future. Can a computer, if it is truly being intelligent and creating something, can a computer own a copyright? Guess what the next Supreme Court decision is going to be on AI,
And then I asked it because I knew that we were going to do this episode, and I've been so excited about this episode for a while. I asked the AI, I said, what are any biblical concerns about AI?
Oh, yeah, I forgot you said that. I'm glad you brought that one up.
And this was its response. It says, the Bible itself does not specifically address or mention artificial intelligence as it was written in a historical context that predates the development of such technologies. However, followers of different religious beliefs or traditions may derive general principles or ethical guidelines from the scriptures that can be applied to ethical considerations surrounding AI. Here's a few suggestions that may be relevant: wisdom and discernment. The Bible often encourages individuals to seek wisdom and exercise discernment in their actions. This can be applied to the development and use of AI, promoting responsible decision-making and considering the potential impacts on humanity and creation. Ethical treatments of others. The scriptures emphasize treating others with love, respect, and fairness. These principles can guide discussions on the ethical use of AI and encourage adherents to consider the potential consequences of AI systems on human well-being, privacy, and social justice. The stewardship of creation. Various religious traditions highlight the concept of stewardship, which involves responsible care and management of the earth and its resources. Applying this principle to AI suggests that humans should use and develop technology in a way that aligns with sustainable practices and respects the integrity of creation. And humility and accountability. Biblical teachings often emphasize humility, recognizing the limitations of human understanding and the need for accountability. In the context of AI, this may mean acknowledging the potential risks and uncertainties associated with its development and promoting transparency, oversight, and accountability to its implementations.
So, hypothetical situation. This will be my last thing, and then we can wrap it up if you don't have anything else. Hypothetically, I'm a pastor. I'm counseling someone. I've got conflict between two church congregation members. I'm stumped. I don't know how to deal with this because both of them have valid points. Do I go to ChatGPT and say, how do I deal with this scenario?
Absolutely not.
But I could see somebody wanting to do it.
Oh, sure. I mean, you
want wisdom. You want to seek wisdom, based on people's experiences. And I think that's the line in the sand is computers don't truly have experiences. They have data. They just have other people's experiences that are recorded.
But when you're dealing with something like counseling, I mean, they have AI counselors now. They have a program that's like an AI therapist. I don't know that I necessarily would be excited about trusting that because Lord knows where it's getting its data from. The issue with what you're talking about, I'm going to say the problem with it is that if you're a pastor that is counseling somebody, then you have an obligation to that congregant that you're counseling to make sure that your counseling is coming straight from the Bible, straight from Scripture, straight from the God's Word, not from...
No, I agree. But remove the biblical context of that and just say the kid who used AI to get through college is now a therapist, licensed, and using ChatGPT to counsel you.
That's terrifying.
It's terrifying, and it's going to happen.
The truth will out eventually, is the way I see it. The truth will out. I mean, you know, if you're getting canned responses to everything, eventually you're going to get found out. It's going to get something wrong eventually.
Well, and
you're gonna have to take the
theoretically,
consequences.
if I say go write me a 500-word essay on X, theoretically the teacher can just put the essay in and say, was this generated by ChatGPT? But again, that's human oversight. What if it decides that for privacy's sake, it can't? I'm sorry, I can't provide that information due to privacy concerns. You know, some stupid. So anyway, that's what I'll finish on. We're never going to answer all the questions, and I was looking forward to this conversation too because I've had questions about it too. I'm like, look, I've always dreamed in some way of AI because I'm a tech sci-fi nerd, but
Same.
I've also seen all the Terminator movies, so now I'm questioning all of that to begin with. But anyway, have y'all got any other thoughts? Any other?
War games.
Oh yeah, that's good Lord. That was 1980 something, like 81,
early
82.
80s.
Yeah, that was the early 80s. Do you want to play a game?
We were already asking the question then.
But yeah, we really were, and I've read Isaac Asimov and what was it, I, Robot, and then
Oh, I
when the
love
Will
that
Smith
movie.
movie came out, of course I had to watch that, and that got me thinking on a lot of this stuff a long time.
I think multiple of his movies have gotten us thinking. I Am Legend. Yeah, and that's an old movie. Not saying that was original. That was a remake, but I, Robot, I was the same way. I love that, and it begs the question, can a robot be sentient? Can it make its own decision? Can it exceed its programming? I don't think it's a question of can, it's when. And was it a human that allowed it to do it? So, anyway, if y'all don't have anything else, we're going to wrap this one up. We appreciate everybody watching, listening, whatever you're doing for this, and we're going to try to get back into a routine, and thanks for taking the time. Give us some shout-outs, some ideas for future episodes, things like that. We've got some more in the tank, but we're always willing to check it out. Thanks. Have a blessed week.